Hello, hello, it's Amanda the Scotican here, and I thought we should talk about the weather in Scotland because, hey, it's been a while since we talked, so why not talk about the weather, right? Now, on my website, thescotican.com, I actually have an entry on weather, and I also have a separate entry regarding packing and advice for what clothes to bring if you're traveling to Scotland or if you're moving to Scotland. So I thought I would try to combine the advice from those two different entries and sort of give you guys an overall idea of the weather in Scotland. Because I gotta say, the weather is something I actually really love about Scotland, weirdly. Because yeah, I'm sure you have all heard the jokes about how much it rains in Scotland, and yeah, there's plenty of rain, but I gotta tell you, I love the actual overall climate and things like that. I'll get into it in a minute. But if you haven't checked it out yet, my website is thescotican.com. I'll put a link below, and I basically, as an American, just talk about Scotland, the things I love, the things I adore, the things I celebrate, stories, and advice, even little bits of Gaelic info, a little bit of everything. This YouTube channel started as just a space to collect videos that I might post on the actual website. So the website actually already has a lot of content if you're looking for more info on Scotland. But let's get into the weather, right? So first and foremost, what you're gonna want to know about the weather is it is always changing. When people say you can experience every single season in one day in Scotland, they're not lying. You can actually experience every single season in a single day. We've had a few of those days happening just this past week. We are currently in April as I'm filming this. Several warm days in a row where the sun is shining, everyone's out in the park walking, then boom, out of nowhere, hail. So keep in mind that when you're thinking about Scottish weather, that things can change. Things can change, and that is why I actually recommend the big thing that anyone who's coming to travel here considers when they're packing: layering. Layering is a big important thing here because you never know what that weather's gonna do. You never know, you could wake up and have it be a beautiful sunny day and then all of a sudden it's pissin' doon, as they say over here. So be prepared for any sort of weather. Be prepared for warmth to turn into a cool breeze and all of that stuff, and save yourself some hassle. Bring a couple extra hoodies and know that if the weather changes, you can always take it off. That's the beauty of layering. Be prepared for the temperament. Now, obviously, every single season, no matter where you're living, is a little bit varied and different. It'll hit spring, but that doesn't mean you're not gonna have some days that feel like winter, right? Scotland's kind of the same way. And the thing that I love about Scotland's climate is that it's usually cool. There has never been a day where the temperatures have really gone above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. At least that I've experienced, or, that I've noticed on any sort of different records when looking up information. Even in the summertime, the highest I've seen the weather get to is maybe in 80 degrees Fahrenheit, but even those 80-degree days are pretty rare. You're probably gonna find you're not gonna go much higher than 70. You'll definitely have days that go below freezing during the winter. So for those in the States who are familiar with more of an autumn climate, maybe somewhere between, the 40s and 60s, that's probably what you can expect of Scotland, especially because it can be pretty windy in Scotland a lot too. And the wind chill does add to that wee bit of bite in the air. So again, another reason to layer, especially if you're not good with cooler climates, if you're from somewhere where it's usually warm and hot all the time, be prepared for that. And just always remember, no matter what, your experiences are gonna vary. A lot of people plan on visiting Scotland in, say, the summertime because, you expect the best weather in the summertime. And yes, you're more likely to get that, but you could also just happen to have the week where it rains all the time. It's not really something you can predict, but the beauty of it is it also can change pretty quick too. Something that gets recommended a lot is that if you see it's raining and you're just sitting there thinking, oh, what a day, I'm not gonna get to enjoy myself, just wait a couple minutes. It could be that the storm passes and you have a great day, but never, ever, ever let the rain deter you from enjoying Scotland, because honestly, the rain is one of the things that makes this country beautiful. It's the same thing with Ireland. They have so much rain that it brings out the vibrant greens and hues, and it just adds to the beauty of it. You wouldn't have the Emerald Isle of Ireland without all the rain. And the rain and the mists and the clouds that come in make some of the scenery in Scotland, especially in the Highlands, so beautiful. As nice as it is to have a beautiful, clear day with the sun shining bright, if you get to take tours of the Highlands and the mist and the fog is just hanging low, that is a completely different kind of magic, and it's one you can just feel. So don't be upset about those rainy days either, because there's a lot of good to come from them as well. So let's talk about the individual seasons, right? First, we'll start with spring. Spring sort of starts around March, April, probably towards the end of March, the start of April. And again, that fluctuates, right? We've definitely had a few pretty cold days here in April, and we had a few warm days in March. So it's gonna fluctuate. If you want some guarantees of warmer weather, come a bit later in the year, April, May, things might start warming up. And when you want to think about temperature, around this season, it's probably roughly between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 55 degrees Fahrenheit. There will likely not be consistency with this. Don't come out here in March and go, I had a day that was 32. It's a rough estimate here. But to give you an idea, it is on that cooler side, and this temperature might not be factoring in something like wind. You get a windy day, it's gonna feel a lot colder. But be prepared for that. Be prepared also for, rain during this season. It's springtime, things are starting to bloom. Again, as I said, it's April right now. We get to see the daffodils in bloom, the sheep are starting to have their lambs. There's beautiful signs of life. Flowers are popping out. Trees are starting to bud. There's the beauty of springtime that you can see here. So if you're familiar with sort of the east coast of the United States, there's a similarity in that as well. Getting to see life return in the springtime and slowly things starting to warm up. That is something that's great about this time of year in Scotland. Summertime starts roughly around June-ish, and we'll go to maybe around August-ish, and this is also like peak tourist season. So if you're wanting to do a trip and you're getting ready to fly out here, be prepared to see slightly higher prices for airline tickets in the June to August range. Summer is obviously peak tourist season for most places, but yes, also in Scotland as well. People are looking for the bright sunny days, the warmer weather, but also there's a lot to do in Scotland in the summertime as well, in addition to just being a tourist and looking around and all that stuff. So as I said at the start of the video, you're not gonna get, 100-degree Fahrenheit days out here. You might have a day or two where you see a day in the 80s. I think maybe in 2013 there might have been a day or two where it hit the 80s, but it was very rare, not very common. Even some of those 70-degree days might happen, but it might not happen as frequently as, say, again, the east coast of the United States. I'm using that as a comparison. That's what I'm most familiar with. So don't expect the heat waves of the summertime that you might get in the United States. Remember that Scotland is much higher on the globe than most of the United States. So that does change the climate overall, but we're still seeing the different seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Although, to be fair, you do have a lot of people cracking jokes out here that summertime in Scotland is just 2 days. And sorry to tell you this, we can't predict when those 2 days are. It usually just, you have 2 days of hot weather, they pass, it gets a little bit cooler, it starts to rain, and everyone just goes, oh, well, how nice that summer lasted for 2 days this time. So, again, not really predictable. The average temperature you might see around this time might be mid-50s to mid-60s. Again, this is sort of the range we're thinking about. Warmer, the breezes might not be as cold, but to me, that's comfortable. I'm genuinely someone that loves autumn, so this is one of the reasons why I love the climate in Scotland. I love the fact that it's cooler most of the time, it's comfortable. I don't feel excruciating heat during the summer times. And again, I'm used to the East Coast. I'm not even used to how hot it can get in other parts of the United States. Moving on to autumn, you do have autumn in Scotland. You will get to see the changing leaves, the foliage. It's such a nice time of the year. The average temperature is probably somewhere between mid 40s and maybe mid 50s. So it's a good time for things like hoodies and leggings and doing that layering that we were talking about at the start of the video. And again, that's also because sometimes it gets windier, and as we're coming in from the warmer weathers of summer, as we get into autumn, the wind might have a little bit more of a nip to it. So being prepared with things like hoodies, cardigans, extra little layers and pieces that you can put on, always a good thing. It's never gonna hurt you. I would honestly argue that things like hoodies and jackets, raincoats, things like that, I would argue that they're better than umbrellas out here, just because sometimes if it's a day where that wind gets you real hard, you might just end up damaging the umbrella. But having a good quality rain jacket, hoodie, things like that, those are always great. I always love having those around. I feel like they help me more than some of the other things have. And then for winter, the winters I've seen in the States on the East Coast have been worse than the winters out in Scotland that I've experienced. Now granted, I've really only lived in Scotland for 2 winters at this point, once in 2012, 2013, and then just this past winter, 2020 to 2021. And both of those times there really wasn't a lot of snow. We did have one small snowstorm in 2012, and then we had one snowstorm in 2020, which the snow was sort of deep, but it melted in about a week. But again, not as rough as the East Coast got pelted with snow in 2020. Again, snow accumulation wise, I don't see it happen here that much in Scotland, but that being said, I think in 2018, they had what they called the Beast from the East, where the snow locked everything down for days. Like, people were caught on the highways, they were unable to get out of their cars for days. You know, people couldn't leave their homes for days, more than 24 hours. So sometimes something hits. But in terms of average weather, the days might not be more than about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, rough estimate, you might have your days above that, but for the most part, expect about that. You know, this past winter we did have several days below freezing, and the wind bites pretty bad. Also, the ice gets pretty bad out here. I know there's been some jokes going on about Scotland and the way they name their grit trucks, their gritters. They do have some great names for them, but you never know when those trucks are gonna get by you. That doesn't always include the sidewalk. So if you're someone like me that occasionally goes walking to the places she needs to get to, well then that's a little bit tougher when the sidewalks are still all icy. So if you're here for winter, maybe a good pair of boots, especially if walking in icy conditions makes you a wee bit nervous. But there's also plenty of hills for things like skiing and stuff like that if you're into it for the winter. So the weather in Scotland, it is pretty unpredictable. Things can change on a dime. Keep that in mind, but be prepared for any situation and know yourself well enough to know exactly what climate you would like to go. If you're someone who's used to warmer climates, then your best bet is probably going to be in the summertime, where you might be more likely to get warmer days. If you love the idea of autumn, you know, you kind of have a few different seasons you can choose from. Another big thing to consider that I think a lot of people don't think about is the sun. The sun rising and setting in Scotland. Because Scotland is higher on the globe than most of the United States, the sun's patterns of rising and setting in the different seasons is oh so fun. So springtime, you might see the sun starting to come up around 6 and then set around 6. So you're looking at roughly 12 to 13 hour days. As you move to summer, that sun is going to stay out a lot longer. I actually first noticed this not in Scotland, but in Ireland in 2011. My family and I went to visit Ireland, and we were there for like the 4th of July, so middle of the summertime. It was too funny. When we were out at a pub our first night, someone just goes, "My watch says it's 10 p.m., but that sun says it's 5 in the afternoon." That sun will stay out a lot longer. during the summertime if you're in Scotland. And if you're farther north in Scotland, that sun might not go away. So what I've experienced is, so the sun's staying out until 11 p.m. or later in Scotland, especially in places like, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Stirling, so not super far north. I haven't yet had the opportunity to just be in the Highlands to experience how long the days can get there, but I've heard it can stay out even later in the northern part of Scotland. So be prepared for that. This is also why blackout curtains are a big thing over here. Because if you're having 17 hours of sunlight, that can impact your sleep a little bit. Autumn, it does start coming back and chilling out a little bit. You might be back to like 11, 12, 13-hour days. So the sun might be gone around 8 p.m. and then rise again at 7. Although I will say, I think it was just this past autumn, I found an old video I recorded in 2013, and it was 5:30 in the afternoon and the sun was gone, and it was November when I recorded that video. So again, more evidence of your results may vary. A lot of the stats that I found say that the sun will probably set roughly around 8 in the autumn, but I've also found that the sun can be gone by 5:30. But we also have to account for the fact that the autumn season is roughly September through November, so by November, again, we're seeing much shorter days. And then by the time you get to winter, that sun might be gone by 3. Yeah, 3 in the afternoon. I can recall days where my fellow classmates and I were leaving class 3 p.m. and it was dark outside. So another reason to consider what season you're going to be visiting Scotland in, and to make the most of your days and your time and stuff like that. Anyway, I hope this video has given a little bit of insight to people who are considering visiting Scotland at some point. Please note we are still in the midst of a pandemic, so borders and lockdowns are not all going away, but maybe this can help you start planning and thinking about and getting excited about traveling in the future. If I can contribute to your future plans and encourage you to visit Scotland, I would 100% am happy to do that. If you want more details or more advice about Scotland, or even just stories, history, things that I, as an American, actually love about Scotland, check out my website below. I have a bunch of different entries there on different things because, hey, I'm just an American who wants to share my love of Scotland with others. Anyway, I will talk to y'all later. Bye!